Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to the Thursday, September 5th, 2024 Public Works meeting. And with us today, we have Councilmember Jefferson, Councilmember Althauser, and myself, Councilmember Swarthout. And so let's go ahead and hit this. We've got on our first item on our, or do we have any changes to the agenda? I've got two items on there. I think we're good. Okay. So on our first item on the agenda is the grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for the Pioneer Park Restoration Project Amendment 1. And who do we have up today?
Good morning. I'm Patrick Soderberg, the program manager.
Morning, Patrick.
So we have Meredith from Greer Consulting with us today, and she's going to talk about the Pioneer Park Restoration Project and the amendment to the grant. Meredith, good morning.
Morning, Patrick. Morning, all. Thank you. Yes. So like Patrick mentioned, the really long name for the grant agreement is very nicely summarized as this is the Pioneer Park Riparian Restoration Project. This is grant amendment number 1. I know I've brought this project before you all a couple of times, but we're making some changes, and so we're back today to be able to talk about it. A little bit of place setting, just because it's been a while. So this is at Pioneer Park. We're talking specifically about kind of that southern portion of Pioneer Park where we're getting a lot of erosion. This site moves and is pretty darn active. We have about 10 feet of movement per year because that's just how rivers normally move. It's not usually a problem, but when we've got park infrastructure and things like that, and we're dealing with that kind of urban and natural nexus, it becomes a little bit trickier. This project's been picked up and put down by various partners over the years. Previously, there were some designs created in 2015 for the project, but if we look at what the river looks like from 2015 until today, it's changed a lot. And so we've been trying to go back to the drawing board to figure out what's the best way for us to kind of help stabilize the bank down there, replant some of the riparian area, and really trying to make a lot of beneficial changes down there that benefit a lot of different things. Ultimately, the Deschutes River has a number of different limiting factors that impact its ability to be considered a healthy watershed that's good for a lot of the critters that like living in the water, including salmonids. This is related to really high temperatures. There's a lot of fine sediment, which is kind of a fancy word for dirt and things like that. If we're thinking about 10 feet of this bank being eroded back every year, that's a pretty big source of sediment. In addition, there isn't a lot of wood. And as you can see, especially in Pioneer Park here, a lot of that comes down to the fact that there just isn't a riparian area here. The trees that were there have all fallen in and have been washed away, and we don't have a lot of big trees growing there anymore. In addition, especially when we're thinking about Pioneer Park, we need to be aware that this is kind of an asset for the community. There is a lot of use in the park. We've got people, when the weather gets nice, being able to float it. There are people who love walking on these trails that are currently being washed out. So we need to keep all of those things in mind. What we had done is back in 2021, we'd received a grant from the Department of Ecology with the idea being that we'd be able to fund the design, permitting, and then construction of a solution down there. In total, we had about $450,000. We were able to hire Stantec, one of the leading kind of firms in the country that does a lot of river restoration work, to do this. The only thing at the time was this grant agreement was for 3 years. And so we set out with an original project schedule. Our goal was starting in 2021, signing the grant agreement, working through designs and permitting in June of 2022. And then I believe last time I came and talked to you all, we were going to work through the permitting process in early 2023. And that's kind of where we hit our snag. So one of the things that we had done pretty early on was go talk to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There's somebody that needs to get involved whenever we're doing things that are adding substance to rivers. And so we'd be doing some work within the Deschutes River, so we need to get a permit from them. And they kindly let us know that due to their staffing levels and kind of their situation, they wouldn't be able to review or issue any sort of permit for up to 2 years. When we're thinking about a grant agreement that only runs through October of 2024, and we hadn't submitted our permits yet, that meant that we weren't able to get all the work done that we were thinking about doing. So we've had to kind of pivot. And that's what we've been working on over the last kind of year and a half, and what I'm bringing forward today. Ultimately, we've decided to break this project into 2 different parts. The first phase is going on from 2022 through 2025. This is what we're calling the upland work. And so all of this is work that is going to help ultimately to improve this project and to help enhance the river down there. But it's work that we can do without needing any of those Army Corps permits that require a 2-year timeline. So on the left-hand portion of the screen, you'll see a really kind of basic design of what we're trying to do. Right now, Pioneer Park floods pretty darn often. And that's generally okay. What we're hoping to do is to do some work to enhance those kind of natural flood channels. This means we're going to be doing some dirt work moving. We're going to be really trying to use the way that the river naturally comes into park and really digging those down to encourage the river to go into it a little bit more. Our ultimate goal is to help reduce something called shear stress on the riverbank. The idea being that the river is at its most powerful and it's taking a lot of the sediment and the rest of the bank away when it hits a certain peak point. Think of it almost like, and this might be a uniquely me problem, but I feel like at least once a week when I'm going to brush my teeth and I put toothpaste on my toothbrush, I end up dropping the toothpaste into the sink. Now, if I'm trying to get that toothpaste off the bowl of the sink, a little bit of water doesn't quite get it. There's a point where I have to put enough water with enough force that toothpaste actually moves. And that's what we're talking about when we're thinking about shear strength. It's the amount of force that the water is putting on the bank that's really eroding it away. And so our goal is to help reduce the amount of shear force there is. And so by encouraging the river to go into this natural floodplain within the park, we're able to help reduce some of that shear stress on the bank. Phase 1 will also include some riparian planting. So we're going to work on planting kind of that upland area, knowing that the bank is going to keep eroding back. So we're really trying to start probably about 20 feet away from where the bank is right now. That would set us up to be able to work on phase 2 of the project between 2025 and 2027. And this would be a lot of the in-water work. It would require permitting, but if we're able to prepare for it, plan for it, then we know what that timeline kind of looks like. In-water work for this project would include in the bottom left-hand corner of the right-hand kind of image, you'll see that the bank is sloped back. We've got some, we call them coir wraps, that are really working to help stabilize that bank. We'd plant them with a lot of native plants like willows to really help to reduce the bank from that sheer drop it's at right now, sloping it back, replanting it, and that would include planting the first, 150 feet.
Meredith, I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
So phase 1 doesn't require input from the Corps of Engineers, but phase 2 does?
Yes, so our phase 1 work is all what is above what is called the ordinary high water line. So phase 1 we're doing within the park where the river isn't normally there. As soon as we do anything where it's actually touching the water of the Deschutes River, then we have to get that Army Corps permit. So that's why phase 1 we're able to do without their permit, but phase 2 would require that permitting.
All right, got it. That's smart. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. So like I was saying, phase 2 will be working on that in-water work. It'll also be providing the largest benefit to a lot of those critters who live in the water, including salmonids, because we'll be putting in some of those natural features that you would see in rivers, like large wood, habitat channels, and things like that. And so because all of these changes are happening, what I'm here to talk to you all about today is changes to the grant agreement we have. The current agreement that we got back in 2021 with the Department of Ecology is changing to adapt to the fact that the project is changing. These changes focus on the scope. So instead of completing the whole entire project and all of that, we've rescoped the project to just be phase 1, this upland work. We're also moving around some items within the budget. The project has about $450,000 in the budget. What we're doing is really moving them between tasks to better reflect the actual outcome and how we're spending money. This means that Tumwater is still getting the same amount of money. We're just moving money around within the agreement a little bit. And one of the biggest things that we're doing is we're increasing the timeline for the grant. It was originally set to expire in October of this year. We've been able to move that out to October of next year, which gives us more flexibility to actually finish the design work I had mentioned and then actually get into doing that construction work before this grant ends. And one of the positives is that Tumwater's already secured funding for phase 2 work. So I will be coming back, I assume, sometime later this fall with the grant agreement for this phase 2 work. And so Tumwater received another $500,000 from the Department of Ecology that requires no match. which is amazing to be able to do that phase 2 work. And so we're very confident in being able to roll straight from phase 1 into all of this phase 2 work as we move into the new year. All of that to say, I'm going to pass this back over to Patrick to make the staff request, and I'm happy to answer any questions after that.
Well, thank you very much, Meredith. That was a great explanation of the project and the amendment for it. So the recommended action is to place the grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for the Pioneer Park Restoration Project, Amendment Number 1, on the September 17th, 2024 City Council consent calendar, with a recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign.
All right, do we have questions? Michael.
Thanks. And thanks for the great presentation, Meredith and Patrick. It's really exciting. My question, which I think I already know the answer to, was just to double check to make sure that, I mean, we are pivoting from the plan, but to just make sure that ecology sort of agrees that this is like the right course of action. But I don't think they would really agree to authorize a new grant for phase 2 if they didn't think that this was a viable pivot strategy. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer, that they're supportive of sort of the change in direction, but just for due diligence, I wanted to ask that.
Yes, absolutely. So we've been working really closely with the grant team from the Department of Ecology as we're rescoping kind of this phase 1 grant. They've been very, very supportive and understanding. A lot of the work when it comes to rivers is highly dynamic because they're constantly moving. So they're pretty used to having to do kind of this work. I will say that as we're moving to this new phase and doing this approach, we've also been engaging our local stakeholders who have been a part of this project. I think in 2 weeks, I have a meeting with all of them to go over the 60% designs that we have so far. And this includes members from the Squaxin Island Tribe, the Department of Ecology, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and some local kind of Deschutes River folks to be able to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to create a win-win situation and that everybody's on board and aware of these changes.
That's great. Thank you so much.
And Meredith, on that, I hate to have you go back to the presentation, but I was curious on the phase 1 piece of it. It shows different channels and all. Are those ones like BC and they had showing different channels? Are those already existing, or are those ones that we are looking at adding? On that,
Absolutely.
the first one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the cool projects that Tomoter completed back in 2023 was a really fancy 2D HEC-RAS modeling project. The idea being that from Henderson Boulevard all the way down to Tomoter Falls Park, we hired a consultant to be able to map if a drop of water gets dropped in the Deschutes River, where is that going at different flood levels? So we were able to see when the Deschutes does kind of come into Pioneer Park, where are those channels coming from? What does that end up looking like? And so we're able to use all of that information for this project. The channels that you see here is where that water is normally flowing into the park. And so what we're doing, all we're doing for this project is really trying to enhance and encourage the water to go there, to increase the capacity a little bit by digging those channels down a little bit further. We're talking about a matter of between like 2 and 4 feet. So it's not that big of a change, but really what we're trying to do is encourage the river to keep doing what it's already doing.
It seems like there's just a ton of little channels down there.
They are, and one of the things that we're trying to keep in mind, and it might be a little bit hard to see, but we do have some proposed footbridges. Our ultimate goal is that the river isn't flooding, you know, every single year, but it does flood often enough. And we know that the public does like coming to see that. Is what we're really trying to do is, if we're going to create some of these channels, to make sure that we're creating an option for people to be able to safely get over those channels as well, if they want to come and explore the park and see what it looks like when it does have those flooding events. And so I've been working with Chuck in the Parks Department to make sure that they're aware of this design and supportive, and that it matches kind of their vision for the trail system down there.
That was my next question, is I know that eventually we'll be able to connect the Brewery Park to Pioneer Park. And I was just curious how this will all interface and what part of this, of the project it'll be working with.
From the best of my knowledge, kind of where that that trail will intersect with Pioneer Park is a little bit further north from this project, and so it won't be a direct kind of connection. But I know that as we are doing work within the river and that there are plans to create a new bridge over the Deschutes as part of that trail project, I've been working with Don Carney in the Transportation Engineering Department to make sure that he has the most updated plans of what the river looks like, to make sure that whatever we're doing up here isn't going to be impacting their bridge work down there, to make sure that kind of all of these projects flow together pretty seamlessly.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So do we have any other questions for Meredith or for Patrick? We ready? Okay, we do have a recommended action before us. So to place the grant agreement with the Department of Ecology for the Pioneer Park Restoration Project Amendment 1 on the September 17th, 2024 City Council consent calendar with a recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, team. Thank you for that one.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Meredith.
Okay, and now we're back. We have the interagency agreement with the Washington Department of Commerce for state home electrification and appliance rebates program. Wow, Alyssa, that's a long one. All
Yeah,
right, we have Alyssa.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for dealing with yet another long titled grant agreement with the state to do good work here in Tumwater. So this is for the interagency agreement with Department of Commerce for State Home Electrification and Appliances Rebate Program. The acronym for that is HEAR, H-E-A-R. And we are doing this because the Thurston Climate Mitigation Plan has a strategy B6, to convert to cleaner fuel sources. As you can see from this pie chart here, Thurston County's largest source of emissions is buildings and energy. This is from 2022 greenhouse gas emission inventory, our most recent. So an important action for us to do is to switch to renewable energy and phase out natural gas, fuel oil, wood, etc. in homes, especially. Here is a breakdown of the residential energy emissions from that large pie chart down to a little bit more specific. And you can see here that we actually had a 31% increase in the emissions related to natural gas between our baseline year and our 2022. So our intention to convert to cleaner fuel sources is especially important because not only is it still a polluting emission source, but it's growing. And we need to meet our emissions reduction targets, and this is one targeted way in which to do that. This year, the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative has been at work developing 2 different regional initiative programs, one of which is the Residential Energy Efficiency and Electrification Campaign, which has 2 different acronyms to make things confusing. It's either EEE or E3 for short. The campaign has 4 main components, which include a web-based information hub, which has already been launched at wa.switcheson.org. Next is local incentives, which this grant will fund for the city of Tumwater, as well as outreach and marketing to help excite the people of Tumwater about the concept of home energy efficiency and electrification, which the grant funding will also help pay for. And the last portion is an advisory support service, which staff is still working on trying to find a suitable contractor for. And that advisory support service would be like, I need to call someone to ask them, what steps do I need to do to install a heat pump? What is a heat pump? Those kinds of things. So something that the market isn't necessarily providing that helps demystify a very important step for our community climate action. This grant funding is $477,540 to improve the lives of Tumwater residents directly from the Climate Commitment Act. There is no city match required, and all of this work will need to be done in a very swift manner, as all grant funds need to be spent by June 30th, 2025. We plan to launch this regional effort, that EEE or E3 campaign, in the new year, so we'll have about 6 months to get this work done. The funding will cover a wide variety of high-efficiency, all-electric home appliances, including heat, like space heating, hot water heating, dryers, induction ranges, and the associated wiring or panel upgrades needed to make those installations. Additionally, up to 15% of the funding can be used for outreach, education, and program administration. All of the different appliances being installed as part of this program need to meet certain requirements that are very narrow and strict, including all of the heat pumps need to be cold climate air source heat pumps. Everything needs to be Energy Star certified, so on and so forth. All of those requirements are laid out in the grant agreement, but those are the two main ones that I'm thinking about regularly. The people who will benefit from this grant and these improvements are low and moderate income residents making up to 120% of the area median income. So here is a table of area median income. This table actually comes from the Energize Olympia program, where they're providing heat pumps to their residents right now. We're using them as a model to have it be seamless throughout the region, that all of the jurisdictions kind of have the same things, the same eligibility, same ways to prove their income, so on and so forth. But the first priority for me and Tumwater is to work with our low-income single and multifamily households with an income of 80% or less, and then also our moderate income single and multifamily households with incomes between 80 and 120%. So the cost for equipment and installation can be a barrier that can keep homeowners from installing more efficient and healthier appliances. So instead of choosing an after-purchase rebate program design, which could be a way that we implement these funds, we've opted to design the program in a way that does not require any out-of-pocket expenses for participants and maximizes the benefit for those who would struggle the most to financially make these changes in their homes. The program design included in the scope of work for this grant is to provide turnkey installations for full home electrification for income qualified households. That means that if a household only has gas heating, they can get a heat pump at no out-of-pocket cost. If a household has gas or wood or fuel oil heating, hot water heating, stove, and dryer, they can get all of those replaced with electric alternatives at no cost to them. The city and the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative would contract with one or more installers to provide that equipment and installation directly, so that it's no headache, no out-of-pocket cost for these homeowners. They're getting these improvements in their homes to have a healthier and more efficient home and help us meet our greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. We anticipate with the $477 some odd to be able to help between 20 and 40 homes in Tumwater to become electrified with the funding available. And we plan to do our first round of outreach to our Lifeline customers. We have 191 residents who are already income qualified to receive lower utility bills. So they've already gone through the income qualification. We want to reach out to them first. Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative will work to attain a group purchase discount for those appliances. That would also provide some benefits to people that are maybe above the 120. We wouldn't be spending any grant funding on that, but we would be working to get competitive pricing with local contractors, which may or may not be the same installer that's doing the other work in the homes. Like I said, this program is designed based on successful models throughout the U.S., including the Energize Olympia program, which is now in its second or third year of operation and has been quite successful locally. And I heard tell of a public comment that might have happened on Tuesday about people being upset that they don't have the same opportunities for the heat pumps. This is where we're trying to do that. Granted, we're limited to the grant funds, like I said, 20 to 40 homes, but that's still better than we're doing now. So to get these benefits, residents would sign up and attend a workshop first to learn about the program and what to expect. That may be an in-person workshop, maybe a virtual workshop, might be a recorded video. We're trying to make it so that it's most accessible to folks. They would then submit an application. Staff would review the application to verify income and that the home is in fact in Tumwater. Once approved, staff would tell the resident and notify the installer to start scheduling the installation. The installation would occur, ensuring that they're installing approved equipment that we can use the grant funding for, and then the installer would invoice the city, and the city would pay using grant funds. So no out-of-pocket costs for those residents. So the recommended action for this particular grant today is to place the interagency agreement with the Washington Department of Commerce for State Home Electrification and Appliance Rebates Program on the September 17th City Council meeting for considerations, because you by all means put it on consent, but I have a feeling others might want to hear about this program, so I thought maybe it would go on considerations with a recommendation to approve without the R, no approver, and authorize the mayor to sign. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Councilmember Swarthout, you were muted, but
Yeah, my lips were moving. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I have two questions. The first, I don't know if there's an answer to it, but these are as a program that's funded through CCA dollars. What happens if the CCA, there's a ballot initiative to repeal the CCA? Would this program, would we have to then use city funds to city-only dollars to backfill if CCA goes away before we actually expend the money? Or like, what are the implications of it being repealed on the fall ballot?
Department of Commerce has been looking at this for all of their CCA funded grants, which is a lot of the grants that I've been able to secure for the city in these programs. My understanding is that we're safe until the July or June 30th. This funding is secure for this round, but future years of funding to continue this program past 1 year is at risk with that ballot initiative. And if we did continue the program without CCA funds, we would likely need to do that out of city funds. It might be a CDBG application in future years when it comes back around to us. We're too small to qualify for a lot of other federal programs that could provide funding for this, unfortunately. But I continue to seek grants, and thankfully we were able to find one to be able to participate in this regional program now. But yeah, it is at risk of repeal for future years of implementation.
Okay. And my second question is, I would assume that and really hope that this would be a very popular program for people to apply. I have a lot of confidence they will be. What happens if a scenario emerges where, you know, we estimate we could do 20 to 40 homes, but we get 50 to 80 applications? How are those sort of ranked or prioritized, other than maybe lowest income first served, or like what are the metrics that are utilized to, maybe we don't have those questions yet because we haven't designed the program, but what are sort of the initial thoughts on what happens when demand exceeds availability of resource?
Yes, and this happened with City of Olympia with their Energized Olympia program. They had a wait list very quickly. I think the program might have been launched a week, and then they had 20 plus people on their wait list. I actually, after this meeting, have a staff team retreat with the other Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative folks, where we're going to be talking more about program design for how we'll approach this as a region, because we want it to be regionally consistent. So if, for instance, we all choose to have the lower incomes available first, or a first come, first serve, we'll do that across the region in the same way. So that's still being developed, but I'm happy to take any recommendations, because literally in a half hour, I will start having that conversation with them. So if there's any direction that you would like to suggest, I can bring that to them.
Yeah, like, I mean, income makes sense to me to the degree that we can build equity into that process too, for historically underserved communities or lower income neighborhoods, things that are ways to build home equity for folks in those neighborhoods. You know, those are the, off the top of my head, the factors that seem important and instrumental. Thanks.
Thank you.
So my question would be that, so these are for single family homes, then we're not, correct, we're not looking at multi-family units at this point, or is it all single family homes?
It's available to both. If
Both, okay.
a renter wants to participate in this, they would need to go through their landlord, the property owner, and we'll likely have a like a form and a way to verify that as well. So it's available to any homes that have these kinds of appliances that are income qualified.
Okay. Yeah, and one of my questions, I appreciate that we're using our Lifeline as our, you already have like a starting spot that you can contact people for this program then?
Yes, yeah, we'll be contacting that. There's one resident who had called me about a year ago who is very adamant about being on this list, who is income qualified, and the Lifeline customers. Those will be the first people that I reach out to. We'll have regional outreach to the general public, but targeted outreach to those folks for sure. Perfect.
All right. Thank you. I realized after attending the workshop and then like some of the public comment we're receiving that I appreciate this going to consideration, because it does show that the programs that are available, and this, I guess we can't educate people enough as far as the resources that are available, and that the city is moving forward and trying to address these climate goals. So I appreciate your effort and your work on this very much. So, all right. No,
Can I ask one more question?
you bet.
So the rebate is obviously income limited, but there seem to be other components that the public can utilize generally, even if they're above that income limitation. Is the group buy one of those things too? Like,
Yes, so the group purchase discount. So right now with Energize Olympia, they have the subsidized installations, for instance. So if you're income qualified, you can get that at no cost. But they were able to negotiate, I think, $1,200 discount off of a single ductless heat pump just by having the group purchase approach. So that would be a discount that would be available to anyone, regardless of their income, that lives in our region, that we would negotiate as a Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative that people could use. So benefits to all, targeted greater benefits to people of lower incomes.
great, that's awesome.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Do we have any other questions for Alyssa? I appreciate putting this on consideration. So we do have a recommended action before us to place the interagency agreement with the Washington Department of Commerce for the State Home Electrification and Appliance Rebates Program on the September 17th, 2024 City Council. Do we want to do consent? Or are we doing consideration?
Consideration.
Okay, because in the packet it says consent, but okay.
You just
Sorry.
make the motion however you want. Yeah.
Okay. Consideration calendar with a recommendation to approve and authorize the mayor to sign.
So
we're-
moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, we will see this again on the 17th. Thank you, Alyssa, for your work on this.
Thank you.
All right, team, it looks like we've reached the end of our agenda. Do we have anything else that we need to talk about? Everybody's dark here. All right, no, okay. It's gonna be a warm day. Apparently we're having heat alerts again. So everybody stay cool, and thank you, Public Works. You guys are really working hard. I notice all the projects that are going on in my driving around here. So everybody stay safe and cool today as you're working on those projects. So with that, I will call the Thursday, September 5th, 2024 Public Works meeting adjourned. Have a good day, everyone.